UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Welcome to Franchise Fatigue, the little podcast on the United Federation of Podcasts network, where we go over all the movies, all the sequels, all the remakes in a franchise. We watch them and we talk about them for you. And we do that because we love them. I'm your host, Brandon-Shea, and joining me, as always, is my good friend, Zach Moore. How are you, Zach?
Hey, Brandon, back from the dead. Happy to talk some Pet Semetary with you tonight.
Excellent, right on. I will be right over to cut up your Achilles heel. Just give me 2 minutes.
First I play with Mommy, now I play with Judd, now I want to play with you.
Yes, creepy little children. That's what this is all about. Good stories with creepy kids. Well, guys, I did want to tell you before we get started on the discussion, if you guys want to get involved in the discussion, please feel free to send us a little MP3 on any of our future recap episodes, and we'll include it. We'll edit it into the podcast. You got a tight limit, so if you hear this and you want to talk about The Godfather, which is our next franchise, you kind of got to get it in right away because we will have recorded the Godfather recap by the time you guys are hearing this episode. So, but I can still probably sneak them in if you guys want to send them to us. But your best bet would probably be to try and get it. The series after that we're going to be covering is Toy Story. So send us an MP3 to contact@ufp.earth. That's our email address, contact@ufp.earth. We would love to include you for any of our franchises that we cover going forward. We'd love to hear from you guys. But tonight we're going to do what we did the last time for Mission Impossible, and we're going to just go over a couple of little things. And we're just gonna talk about a couple of favorite things that we had in each of the movie series. So Zach, tell me, which is your favorite movie from this franchise?
It's pretty easy for me. Brandon's going to be Pet Semetary 1989. That's my favorite of the three.
I gotta agree with you there. I think it's easy that it's a first place for me. It holds a special place in my heart because of watching it with my sister at a young age, like I said. But I still think that it holds the candle in this little franchise. And I think it's going to be pretty easy for the next question here, but how would you rank the three films?
Yeah, when there's only three films, it is, again, pretty easy to rank, especially when there's just a very accepted order of quality of them, all of them. But I would rank the 1989 Pet Semetary first, the 2019 Pet Semetary second, a big chasm, and then Pet Semetary 2. That's how I would rank the movies. What about you?
That's funny. Well, I don't think I would put that chasm in there, but I would probably keep the order the same. I like the remake a lot, but I still think the original sneaks ahead just by a hair. So I got to go with the original, the remake, followed by Pet Semetary 2, not far behind. So
yeah, I mean, you gave the original and the remake the same rating, and pretty much by a nose, but by horse head, the original wins over the remake for you. But for me, I it's like a half step, half grade. I gave the original 3 out of 5 and the remake 2.5 out of 5. So, but they're right up there. Both Pet Semetary ones are good movies. But honestly, for me, what puts it over the top is probably Fred Gwynn as Judd. Just his character, his performance. He's just every scene he's in. He's just magnetic to watch, and he's what really gives Pet Semetary. The first Pet Semetary won the edge over the second Pet Semetary one.
So what do you think if somebody were to make a fan edit of that first film, keeping all of Fred Gwynn's dialogue, but instead they would edit in scenes from the Munsters?
That's not where I thought you were going with that, Brandon. I thought you were going to say you edit the Pet Semetaries together. But no, that's a ridiculous question, and I'm offended that you asked me. Although I will say, it does, honestly, though, and we didn't really get into this at the remake talk because there were so many other things to discuss, but it reminds me of It, the 2017 It. Did you see It? When it came out a couple years ago?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I was waiting for the second one to come out because I didn't want to wait that long.
Well, to me, and this is not a spoiler or anything, but to me, and I think to everyone, the most iconic, memorable thing about the TV miniseries It is the Tim Curry as the clown, And one of the Skarsgård brothers, I think it's Alexander Skarsgård, I might be wrong. No, actually, I don't think it's Alexander Skarsgård. There's a lot of Skarsgårds in Hollywood, okay? One of them plays the clown in It. And it's good, right? But it's like evil clown. It's like, okay, the thing was unsettling about the Tim Curry. It was he looked like a normal clown, but he was doing horrible things and popping up in weird places and things like that. The new clown, you're like, oh well, yeah, I'm not going to talk to that guy. That guy's evil looking, So if you but everything else around it is superior to the miniseries, So if you can supplant the Tim Curry clown into the new It, that's an A+ movie. And if you can supplant the Fred Gwynne Judd from the old Pet Semetary to the new one, not an A+ movie, right? But that would be the perfect combination. But that's the parallel I'm drawing here, if that makes sense.
Yes, I like it. That's an interesting take. So, yeah, you really like the Fred Gwynne, and once again, you give John Lithgow the second place in the remake. As we talked about briefly in the last episode, because we're both fans of Nightmare at 20,000 feet, Nightmare at 30,000 feet, whatever the number is, and you like the Shatner version, and I like the Lithgow version.
I do.
But that's off topic. That's a little off topic.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so Zach, tell me, did you have a favorite scare in this movie? Maybe a jump scare, maybe something that bothered you, maybe like a really tense and suspenseful moment for you?
Yeah, I gotta say, because I'm not really into gore. That's not really my thing. It's not what I go to horror movies for. So there's horror and plenty of other things. And I gotta say, the most effective, just haunting, horrible thing to happen in any of these movies, going to the first film, going to engage, wanders out into the road, and he gets hit by that truck because you can see it coming, and it's just that is the most horrible thing that could happen, and it does happen. And you feel for the family, you feel for little Gage. He's 2 years old. He never got to live life. Just got mowed down by a truck by a distracted driver, and just you see the shoe, and you're like, oh my god, he's dead. And that is like, and that was gutsy for them to. I mean, obviously it was in the book, right? But they just killed a 2-year-old in a horrific way, in a very relatable way, because that could happen. That happens to kids. They wander in front of cars and they get killed, And for all this supernatural horror and death and zombies and slashing and all that going on, it's the mundane, if you can even label it that, deaths are the most effective, and that's why it's haunting. And then of course that's the domino effect that leads to the the second half of the film. But to me, that's the moment. And I had a similar feeling in the remake, but it's the double switch with Gage and then Ellie. But since that's the first one that I saw, that's the one that sticks with me. And to me, that's the most impactful moment of horror, even though it's not the traditional slasher gore horror that we might be thinking of when you think of these movies. That's the one that sticks with me the most.
I had two that I wanted to talk about. One that I really liked from the first one is, and they're actually both the same death, just done differently. The Pascal death in the first one, just because of the quick cut and how it's kind of a calm scene, and the cut is immediately panic driven, right? Because they're bringing the body in and seeing the damage to his head the first time. I that sticks with me because I was probably a little too young when I saw this movie. Like I said, I was 13 years old. I was probably a bit too young, but I remember that always stuck with me, and that always really bothered me. But I really liked what they did in the remake. When the lights were kind of dimming and whatnot, it just created this added sense of unease and something creepy. And when he turned around and the guy was just sitting up, I thought that was a really effective jump scare, and I liked that one a lot. So that's probably going to be my favorite.
And yeah, seeing his brain like that was it's disgusting too.
Yeah, even in this one, they're like I can see his brain, and they zoom in on it and whatnot. But
right.
Yuck, gross. So awesome. So the only other thing that I kind of want to talk about then is, so horror movies and franchises, they tend to get more sequels. So while we both said in the last episode that we think the franchise is dead, if they did another one, where would we like to see this franchise go? Where would you like to see them go with the next Pet Semetary film if they decided to do it? Would you like to see another remake, a prequel, a sequel to this, a sequel to the original? What would you like?
Well, it's interesting you say that, Brandon, because there had been talk of the directors of thinking a potential prequel to this, because they feel like there's a story there before the Creeds moved here. I think that would be a bad idea, because I don't think that would work. Plus, you'd have to recast the kids by the time they make it; they wouldn't be the right age, and I'm against that for sure.
If they made a prequel, I don't think that they would do the Creed family at all. I think they would probably do some of the early, revivals of bodies and stuff. Maybe young Judd or something like that. If they did a prequel.
And now that would be interesting. I mean, that's a logical way to go. It's like it's like when they were talking about we're getting ahead of ourselves in our franchise fatigue trivia here, but then when they were talking about doing a sequel to Jaws, the initial idea was to be about the USS Indianapolis and Quint, right? Because it's like here's a guy that tells a story about something that happened in the past. Let's see that. Let's extrapolate that. So that would be an interesting way to go. Yeah, I mean, we could finally see the flashback that they removed for the 2019 version that I like so much, the 1989 version, right? That whole story of that guy.
Right.
Yeah, but I think and I brought this up when we were talking about Pet Semetary 2, at least briefly I did. There's a lot of more potential here about pets and loss and death and sad. It's like, because we have church, but that's pretty much it. But in Pet Semetary 2, you have the guy and his dog and that kind of stuff. So you could do more stuff with that, with kids playing with something they don't understand. It's a little cliche. So I think, as poorly conceived and executed as Pet Semetary 2 was, they had the right idea, I think, because now no one's a guardian of this Pet Semetary anymore, right? But of course now according to this movie, we have a zombie family running around. So that's a whole nother spiral I didn't really take into consideration. But people using the power that they don't understand from the jump might be interesting, and loss of a pet and that kind of stuff. You could delve more into that because Ellie doesn't even know Church died. That's what was interesting about the first film is that the dog died, and John Connor and his friend go resurrect the dog because they love the dog, and so they know. So I don't know. There is potential there. So yeah, I mean, there actually, as much as we say it's fatiguing, we don't want to see it. I think there are enough threads, past or future, you could pull on, especially with the ending of the 2019 movie, because you got a zombie family out there. What is next for them, right?
Right. You could almost even go like a comedy for the next one, like this zombie family. He works at the school. He's a doctor, but he's a zombie.
Yeah, you can make a CW show called iZombie about it, perhaps.
I love it. That's great. Or we could do like older Gage, right? We could do one storyline with older Gage running the zombie family, right? And then the flashbacks would be like, younger Judd building up the empire, and how he doesn't want to get involved in drugs.
I think that would work, but I would be really excited for part 3 of that.
Right.
Trilogy.
When
I think
Gage
that would
says,
probably be the best one.
Gage says, "Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in."
Do you have any serious suggestions, Brandon?
No, I don't actually.
You had the idea about young Judd, and I think that's actually a decent idea. Yeah.
If they did another movie, I'd say it would have to be a prequel. Because where do you go with a zombie family? Like, where do you go after that? Like, that's just an ending, but you can't really follow that up with anything, I don't think.
Well, if you think about it, the first Pet Semetary, Denise Crosby comes back from the dead, kills her husband, and then what happens to her? We don't know. I mean, it's kind of a thread right there. So
yeah, she opened up a beauty parlor in town and does nails and stuff.
Yeah, of course, that's what they would do. So
yeah. Anyways,
but I think honestly, those zombie movies are so played out by now. I think the mid 2000s with Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland, and then of course Dawn of the Dead as well, which Shaun of the Dead was a parody of. That was the height of zombie media. Even The Walking Dead, which is still going on, I think that's, as I understand it, it's been pretty played out by now. So I think
I enjoyed
zombies
last
were a
season.
thing.
I'm still watching it.
Okay, I've never watched it, but it's my understanding that most people think it's kind of played out by now. So
yeah, I thought they did a good job with season 9. They just finished season 9 just the last week there. So,
but The Walking Dead, it doesn't mean the zombies; it means the people, right?
That's okay. We're all inclusive. Walking Dead people, it's all inclusive.
All Well, there you go. But as we said in our final episode, we do think the franchise is fatigued, and we really don't want to see anymore. But if this makes a lot of money, people, the boardrooms will start churning. People will start